tornado. I woke up from a deep slumber and looked at my wife's terrified eyes. Tornado, she said, with that boom, the largest sound I've heard in my whole life, as our house was struck by an F3 tornado and tore the side off of our house. I looked at my wife and I said, we have to get the children. We ran in their bedroom and they were both sitting up in their bed sobbing. We each grabbed a child into our arms and grabbed them and ran out into the living room where we were going to go down the stairs. And I looked and the wall was gone. Imagine going out into your homes tonight and seeing what I saw that night. Glass insulation, 2x4s, nails, everything was in my house. Rain was coming into the house. All the furniture was flipped over against the far wall. I sat there in shock and held my daughter Molly and ran down to the basement, and my wife held Julie. We went down to the basement. Soon we realized the tornado was over, and we went upstairs to survey the damage. As we sat there and we looked at this devastation and we made sure that everybody was okay, there was a knock at the door. And my neighbor said, Steve, my sister is hurt. Come, we need your help. So I ran through the neighborhood. There was no lights on. I was in my pajamas. It was 2 in the morning on November 10th, 1998 in Columbia, Missouri. We ran through the neighborhood to her house. There were sirens going. All the lights were out, obviously. There was many destroyed homes. I ran into my neighbor's house, and she had been in the southwest corner of the room, which was where the tornado came from, and was trying to get out of her room when she saw it, and the window exploded into her back. And a very large piece of glass went into her thigh all the way to the femur. And she was laying on the floor bleeding when I got there. We quickly got candles and towels, and she held the candles so I could see, and we applied direct pressure, thank goodness from my Boy Scout training, applied direct pressure until the paramedics could arrive, which was 30 minutes. And trust me, 30 minutes on a night when you're doing something like that is very scary. But there were sirens blaring and many people were hurt. And so finally they arrived, and she did not die that night. She credited myself and her sister with saving her life. In fact, no one in our neighborhood died, but many people were seriously injured. I went back to my house and I walked into my house. I opened the front door and I see the backs removed. And my wife and 2 children, who were, Molly and Julie were 5 and 10, were standing in the living room. And this feeling of everything that I care about is standing here, and they're surrounded by devastation. And I walked up, I got down on one knee, and I held my family. And as I shed tears, I thought to myself, I just lost my house, but I still have my home. What is your home? What do you hang on to when the storms of your life hit? I suggest to you that that is a big piece of how you survive a tough economy like we're in right now. Do you know what your values are? Have you written them down? Are you living in accordance with those values? Now, one of my values is marriage. And my lovely wife, Shar, is sitting in the back. And I think I've done a pretty good job of dedicating myself to her. In fact, the other day I said to her, dear, if you had but 15 minutes left to live, how would you spend it? And she said, oh, I would spend it with you, dear. And I said, oh, that's very touching. Why is that? And she said, trust me, you can make that feel like an eternity. So one of, in Rotary, I took Chip out to breakfast to talk about what does your membership need? And he said, well, like all service organizations, we're struggling to maintain membership. And so one of your values is service above self. And my feeling is if you keep that focused, you're going to be just fine. You will survive this because you can't afford to fail. There's too many people who need you. And that inspires me.